Overall, it's been a fairly moderate summer temperature-wise here in central and eastern Kentucky, but we have jumped back into what we typically see into mid to late August around the area, and that's a lot of heat, and it's going to be hanging with us through the week with highs pretty much in the 90s each and every day, the only exception being maybe far eastern Kentucky, at least the next day or so. Concerned about those heat index values getting 100 or above, so you'll definitely want to use some common sense and use caution. We got a cold front, couple of them that will break the bit of a mini heat wave we're looking at for the upcoming weekend. One thing that helped us out for a while, you can kind of see here on our Max HD radar and satellite regionally, a little bank of cloudiness dropping in out ahead of a frontal system to our north. That's filtered the sun out, as you see here with our Bluegrass Pace Care Skyview HD camera network. Richmond EKU is still hot at 90. Winds are light and our dew points are up, and that has really impacted the heat index values, especially here in the Bluegrass. Temperatures upper 80s to around 90 to the east. A warm spot to Lexington and Frankfort at 93. And check out the dew points low to mid 70s. That's your tropical feel. And as a result, 100, that's a feel like Lexington, 103 in Frankfort. Elsewhere into the mid to upper 90s. So nothing off the charts, especially across southern and eastern Kentucky, along and west of I-65. That's where you really get into some higher heat indices. 113 to feel like in St. Louis, 110 in Paducah, and 106 there in Evansville. As I mentioned in first weather, we've got the heat advisory until 9 o'clock. We're not going to meet the criteria for it, but given how unseasonably mild it has been of late, this was to just kind of increase awareness of the fact that we're going to be pretty hot coming up here the next several days, and along and west of 65 for now. They're going to keep the excessive heat warning in daily through Thursday. I think it'll be an as-needed basis here in the Bluegrass and potentially into eastern Kentucky a little later in the week. Now, this front here, it's off to our north, but believe it or not, this high is actually going to give it a kick, and it will pivot and be laying across central and eastern Kentucky into the day tomorrow, and that will have an impact, I think, on temperatures depending on location. Starting out tomorrow morning into the 70s, but notice tomorrow afternoon we'll have a bit of a northeast wind, so upper 80s to around 90 to the east, low 90s here in the Bluegrass. Our muggy meter, it's not going to be up in the oppressive range, and that's great because that keeps us out of the super duper high heat indices. It'll bounce around a little bit. Here's a future cast, 100-ish on Wednesday, and that's kind of where we were today. And then rolling into Thursday. Thursday may be the worst of it. That front will be approaching on Friday, so I really think Thursday, Friday, the worst of it. But you see where the front's laying, and again, with that northeast wind, that should knock our humidity levels and dew points down a bit tomorrow, and then with a disturbance over the western Gulf of Mexico, which may become a tropical storm, that may throw some high thin clouds kind of up and over the ridge and into our area, and any of that activity as far as filtering of the sun, that'll have an impact on temperatures. So that's something to watch later in the week. And then getting into the end of the week and the weekend, by Friday night, we should have this frontal boundary dropping in with at least an isolated to scattered storm. But what it's going to do, it's going to knock the heat down, and it'll be a whole lot better this weekend. 74 fair skies, warm tonight, 93 tomorrow, mostly sunny, hot again. Those heat indices up around 100 potentially, maybe a little lower than that with that northeast wind and that front in place. And you see our hottest days coming up Thursday, Friday. Front number 1 knocks us down into the upper 80s on Saturday. Dry front number 2, much more like it to end the weekend early next week with highs in the low to mid 80s.